Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Success Sadhana. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to a program today where we'll discuss Be Careful What You Feed Your Mind with your speaker, Vaish, veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk. We're close to 13 members on Zoom and 25 members in our Facebook community. I have Pavni helping me out in managing social media today. Good afternoon, Vaish. Welcome to another episode of Success Sadhana.
Thank you so much, Jay. I'm glad to be back here. And I must say that the music before the program opens reminds me of the good old days.
Yeah,
yeah, because we've been doing this since the beginning of 2020, right?
Yes.
Before that, we were driving in to the various places in person. And then we all came on this program at that time, and I think it's been the same music. So I have a lot of good memories there. Thank you. Has something to do with today's subject, because whatever kinds of things we listen to and wherever we associate or whomever we associate with, we actually accumulate the qualities from the sound vibration and from the people. So that's a principle we've talked about again and again. And I always come back to that because I think so much in terms of how the tendency in the world, or the forces, are so hard to deal with, that we need some fundamental practice every day that holds us steady. And coming back to the basics is really important. And having a fundamental knowledge of the principle of what it is that is affecting us. Sometimes nowadays in medicine, there are people who are holistic practitioners, and they look at a person's environment in total. In other words, what are you eating? What are you keeping in your room? What's your bed made out of? What kind of lights do you have? And you can go around and observe everything about your environment and find something that's actually affecting your health. And I think in some ways, of course, it's an inside fortification that we need, but it's also helpful to observe what it is that's affecting me in my life. What am I taking in purposefully or without thinking about it? And correlating that to the ways that my consciousness is getting formed. So that's why I picked this subject. It's so easy to become dissuaded or distracted from any kind of practice. So what is the basic thing to come back to, even if you do a little bit, that will make the biggest difference? I think that's one of the things that inspired me to talk about what I'm going to talk about today. Well, great to see you, Joshua. Been a while. Subhadra, hi, T. Good to see you. Linda, hey, Charles. And there's Mayank, always there. And Rajesh, great to see you. I see Wolf's there, Ramakrishna, Sanjay, Pavani, Ravnab. There's Kola Dweep, the one and only. Naveen, Nicole. It's Rob Korb. Yeah. HQ Lou. CK, Carrie, DT, Adon 1, and Pradeep. And more are coming in, but great to have you here. So last week, we started off with Kirtan. And anybody who was here for the Kirtan last week, do you have any recollection about what we talked about, or how it felt to do Kirtan and what it was?
I was here.
Okay.
And
Go ahead, Jay.
I did like that rhythm. The music, it was short but very sweet. And what I feel is, like, throughout the day, I might be going through many different things and different sounds I hear. But when I go to sleep, the day when I hear kirtan, for whatever reason, when I'm on my bed trying to close my eyes, it doesn't matter when I heard it, it'll come back at that time. Kind of, it's like it has been always playing in my subconscious throughout, which I never noticed. But when I go to close my eyes, it comes back, and that I start humming that. But if any other music I hear, it doesn't come back. So like it looks like it has a lot more potency than others, that it comes back when it needs, like when I need it, I guess.
Well, you're lucky in that way, because I can still remember a lot of commercial music jingles and things like that from my youth. It just comes into my head sometimes. But yeah, kirtan is spiritual sound vibration. It's the singing of a mantra, a spiritual formula, and then there's music and there's rhythm. Oftentimes it goes with it, and it's which song we keep in our heart, in our mind, that determines our attitude and our consciousness. This is the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He taught this 500 years ago as a kind of meditation. In fact, he walked all over South India and as a monk, barefoot. And he would go from small village to small village, and he would teach people to come together in a group. And if they had instruments, they could bring them. And then he would teach them this simple way of doing meditation in a group is you sing the mantra, or one person sings it and everybody else responds. And you get this back and forth of the mantra. And so he explained, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in one of his teachings, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, that the mind is like a mirror. And then if it gets dirty, we can't see ourselves properly in it. We think that we're something that we're not, or we have a distorted view of ourselves. So he said, you can cleanse the mirror of the mind by this kirtan, by this special kind of vibration. And so if you get together and you have a kirtan, then you'll start noticing that the sound vibration goes in and it has an effect on you, which is different from other kinds of vibrations that are more materially motivated, or that are completely materially motivated and are more for sense gratification. In other words, they delight the senses for a little while, but they don't have that spiritual effect. That's the difference between a kirtan and material sound vibration. Does anybody else remember the kirtan from last time? Were you here, Charles?
Unfortunately, I wasn't here for the kirtan last time, but my experience with kirtan has been amazing. I think it always brings me joy, and I think it helps feed the soul in terms of being able to move with the body, and then feel a connection with others as we're singing together. So it's been a very enjoyable experience for me.
Yeah, because I think you've been to some live kirtans, so you've had an experience of them. Well, this is, we can try a little bit now. This is the way we'll start today, with a little bit of musical meditation. So I'll play a tune and sing to it. Because we don't have our band here, we usually set up a program called Jamulus so that we can have a back and forth that's synced. You can't do that ordinarily. We have a special technology to do that I haven't arranged for today. So I'll just do it for a little bit so you can get an idea of what it's like. And then you can respond behind muted mics. Otherwise, we'll get off sync. Okay? So, JM, if you would put up a few slides on mantra, the preamble, and I'll just talk a little bit about the science of mantra. This relates to today's topic because we're feeding our minds some special kind of sound vibration today, and that'll make a difference, and we'll notice it. And the science of mantra meditation starts in the ancient Vedas, and there's a potent sound source. That is, it has a special spiritual power to it, that when one fixes one's mind on it, hears it, repeats it, then it awakens the higher consciousness, and it also cleanses the heart at the same time. What do I mean cleanses? There are all kinds of errant desires within the heart, desires for things that are irrational, attachments to temporary things, and these cause us great anxiety. But by hearing this potent sound source, the mantra, then there's a way in which it naturally cleanses, like a solvent. If you want to get something out of your coat, you put a solvent on and it takes it out for you. Like I have a little laundry pen I carry with me whenever I'm traveling, because inevitably on long flights, something spills, gets on one's shirt, and then I just touch it up a little bit with a laundry pen, and then it's gone. So like magic. I don't know what's in it. I checked to see if I could find out, but they're not revealing it, because apparently if I could recreate it, I wouldn't have to buy their laundry pens. However, with the mantra and this kind of solvent for cleaning the mind and the heart, we do have the solvent, and you can carry it with you wherever you go. And there is an explanation of what's in it. There's syllables. Sound has creative power. So this is the first mantra. This is a mantra, Nitai Gauranga, and let's try singing this a few times. I'm going to sing it one bar, and then you repeat behind muted mics, and I'll just be quiet, because that helps me to breathe in between also. Is everybody ready? Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. 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 And now we'll go to the next mantra, and it has these different syllables. So there's Krishna, Rama, and Hari. And so Krish means the whole of existence, and it also means attraction. Na means one who ends material suffering, and it also indicates bliss or ananda. Rama means enjoyment from the spiritual experience, and Hari is the energy of the original conscious source. So the whole mantra looks like this. And it's pronounced Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And now I'll sing this mantra, and you can repeat behind muted mics. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everyone. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everyone. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everyone. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everyone. Bravo. Even though I couldn't hear you, I could feel you chanting there. That was nice. So this is one of the processes of meditation. It's very pleasant to have a session you could do with two people, although I've seen one person doing it, just sitting and chanting. Sometimes you'll find a person sitting with a rhythm instrument, just singing him or herself, but then a group of 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, and then you have something that's very entrancing. Linda found it calming. Yes, it's a way you can sort of enter into, be enveloped by a spiritual energy quite naturally. And the mind becomes captured by the whole experience, the music and the mantra and so forth. And you get carried to a higher level of consciousness and you'll start to notice it. So music and rhythm are not unpleasant. And when you add a mantra to it, then you've got a very pleasant way of doing this kind of meditation. So this is why Chaitanya, who taught this 500 years ago, said, it was the Anandam Buddhivardhanam. The word Ananda means bliss. We're looking for some kind of bliss. Anandam Buddhivardhanam means it's an ocean of bliss, but it keeps expanding. So it's not the kind of happiness or experience where you taste it and then it's not as good the second time. It's the opposite. You keep doing it, it keeps getting better. So that's what spiritual happiness is like. It keeps expanding, which is inconceivable to my mind because I'm used to sensory experience through which I get diminishing returns. Every time I revisit the sense object, I don't get the same stimulation I did the time before. I keep trying to get it back, but it never quite happens. So now we'll look at a couple of slides to talk about this basic principle where we can become more and more successful in our lives through feeding our minds spiritual sound vibration. Can we see the first slide? Like, just how we're advertising it. I want to make sure I don't give any false advertising. Yeah, I like the picture. It's quite indicative and accurate, actually. The kinds of things, and you can imagine if the kind of papers that is going into that person's mind are something that is inconsequential or just whimsical, that it'll form that person's consciousness. Whatever level of information we're putting into our mind, to that degree, our minds will become situated. And so the admonition of this topic is be careful what you feed your mind. And if you think of it in terms of feeding, then you'll have a real life example, because most of us know what we are, what we eat, right? And I'll give an example about that I learned when I was a kid. So let's go a couple more slides, because I want to talk about Ricky Masano, my friend in third grade. Ricky, I hope you're listening out there somewhere. Okay. Well, what's the one before this? Yes, whatever we feed the mind, it becomes. So this is a truism, and it is something to keep in mind. I wonder why I think the way I do. I wonder why I feel happy or sad or attached or agitated. Well, it has everything to do with what you're feeding your mind. And be aware. Now let's look at Ricky. My friend in third grade, Ricky Masano, was the skinniest guy in the class. And he also didn't look so healthy. He had scraggly hair, and he was sort of, people used to bully him sometimes because of the way he looked. And he did an experiment once, because we had a science fair for our third grade class. Different people did different experiments. Ricky was pretty good with science, so his parents helped him out. He got 2 cages, and he got 2 white rats. And one of the rats, he fed superfoods. Some of the, like whatever the best food you could possibly give a rat. Of course, I think they're omnivores. But he gave them really good stuff like fresh alfalfa and the best kinds of fruits, fresh fruits, organic, everything, oats, raw oats, nice stuff. And the other rat, he fed what Ricky used to eat. What did Ricky eat? He ate, I don't know if you've ever any of you have ever heard of Hostess Twinkies, and there's a few more. There's Ho-Hos. It's the gold standard of junk food, basically. In fact, some people have claimed a legal defense that they ate too many of them. They went crazy and killed somebody. That happened here in San Francisco, unfortunately. So, junk food is all kinds of artificial stuff put together, lots of sugar, but that's what Ricky used to eat. He didn't pay attention to people, his parents especially, who tried to give him good food. But after he did this experiment for a couple months, and the one that was eating superfood looked like a super rat, and the other one looked like Ricky. And Ricky and I laughed about it. He said, "Hey, I look just like that skinny little rat." And he actually won the fair that year, the science fair in third grade, by showing the difference between those two. And then especially because he gave a from the heart revelation that, wow, I'm going to change my diet, because I've noticed this is the effect of what I eat. It changes your body when you change your diet. And it has a 1-to-1 correlation. So this is as true for Ricky's diet as it is for ours. What we feed ourselves, what we're letting, what we're reading, what we're hearing, the kind of practices that we have. The association means what we're hearing, really. Because when you're around people who are interested in business, you go to where do you go? Rotary or something, Lions Club. I don't know. What do they do at the Lions Club? You go to a club because you want to hear the vibration of how to get better in life. Or, if you're enthusiastic for Star Trek, you go to the Star Trek convention and you talk about Spock and how the old one wasn't or the new one's not as good as the old one, or whatever. I don't know. I haven't been to one. I'm sorry I missed them all. But the fact is, when we associate with others in groups, then we hear things. We hear the subject that they're interested in, that subject of focus. So one of the first teachings in the Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Sutras, the ancient books on yoga is find a place where the vibration is spiritual. And that's the topic. So there are, even during the pandemic, there were all kinds of places where one could go and hear spiritual topics, the teachings. This was hopefully one of them. We tried to cover many topics from these ancient wisdom literatures and have discussions based on spiritual goals and so forth. And then from the association, and gradually, that's what we're feeding ourselves. That's what we feed our mind. That's what goes in. I'll look at one more slide and we'll take some reflections. So the next point that's really important is we're not dead stones, and therefore we have a choice. Now, in the beginning, it may seem hard to make the choice because the mind becomes attached to a certain mode. For instance, in the mode of rajas, and I've talked about this before, there's 3 modalities in the material world that control us, and one of them is called rajas or passion. And in that mode, I get attached to distraction. I just want my mind to be distracted all the time. People look at fragmental videos of cats jumping into a pool, or any myriad subject matters, anything that just keeps the mind stimulated. But there's no ultimate end to it. It's just kind of like eating, cotton candy. It's just, what's the ingredient? 99.9% sugar and then some chemicals that make it pink. So that's what you get. And if Ricky Misano could figure out that by eating cotton candy and Hostess Twinkies and Ho-Hos and ding-dongs, don't let me forget the ding-dongs, then, he's going to turn into a skinny little runt. And he's not going to be unhealthy looking. And so if I choose to take in certain kind of vibration that's just like that, then that's what I'll be like also. But coming to the revelation that I have a choice is really important. This is the essence of spiritual practice, is be aware that you have the choice. And then try to fortify your environment so that the higher sound is with you, and the other kinds of associations are only incidental. It's not your main choice. So the choice is important. So let's just come back in the Zoom room for a moment, because we had kirtan, and we also have had some discussion about this topic of feeding your mind. I revealed my secret of one of my great mentors in life, Ricky Misano. I have other Ricky Misano stories too, and which I'll tell at a different time, but I'd like to hear from you. I really would. What are you hearing from, and what are you taking from this so far? Please share. Sharing means caring.
You can unmute yourself and share, or Mayank, go ahead.
Hi, I have a question. I have been thinking about this coincidentally from past 2-3 days, and it really relates to the last slide we saw about we having the choice. I was thinking that who is really the decision maker? Like when we talk about the 3 modes and how they affect us, and like the senses, the mind, intelligence, and the soul above that. So when we really make a decision, is it the soul making the decision, or so that is what I've been thinking about.
Yes, but we can encumber ourselves. For instance, if you make some really bad decisions, and let's say you decide to take up a life of shoplifting, and then you get arrested for the 3rd time, and they say, okay, that's it, you're going to jail. So you have to go into the county, I don't know where they send you, county jail, some kind of jail. And once you go in there, you have fewer choices, because you made some really bad choices that encumbered you, and now there's kind of a time for you to be under the control of someone else because you were infringing on others' rights. So this is like karma. We have choices as living entities, but when we do things that infringe and go against the laws of nature, then nature has a way of giving us some time to purify ourselves. You know, the quintessential Western where the guy gets drunk and starts shooting up the town and the friendly sheriff puts him in jail overnight so he can sober up. That's kind of the way, the modes of nature. If I get out of hand with my choices because they're uninformed, that's called vikarma. I'm doing things that are not just bad for me, they're bad for other people too. And so by nature, I get encumbered. And now my choices are within the prison. I still have some choices. Do you want the mashed peas? Or would you like to have the, I don't know, I hate even thinking about jail food, but would you like to have the cream corn or mashed peas? That's your choices now. No more fresh asparagus or artichokes. So, and then, you don't get as much choice. You have to wake up at a certain time, go to bed at a certain time. It's imposed upon you. And so the more we get knowledge and we have practice to strengthen our resolve to make right choices, then the more we make right choices, the more free we become. This is it sounds paradoxical, but it's a verse actually in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, Raga dvesha vimuktaistu vishayan indriyaishcharan atmavashera videyatma prasadam adhigachati. By following some kind of regulation, you become freer. It sounds opposite. I'll do whatever I want. But good luck with that one, because not only your own health and the way people react to you, what to speak of the civil laws and so forth, you may be more and more encumbered. So it's our choice, but sometimes we get ourselves in a hole. And you know what they say? If you find yourself in a hole, stop digging, and come out. This is what the Vedas say: come to wisdom. Tamasima Jyotirgama means come to enlightenment, come to the light. Get yourself on a higher level and you make higher choices. We know when we're making better choices, and when oftentimes we become aware I'm making a bad choice. There's that conscience. We go, God, don't do that. And then go, I'll do it anyway, because the senses are talking. And if you have a dog and you don't train it, I mentioned this last week, and then he'll just jump on everybody because no training. So you have to train the mind, you have to train the senses. And like twice a month, I do a little austerity of fasting. And because, you live a comfortable life. And then, if you voluntarily take some austerity to control the senses, then you come to a higher perspective, really, you do. And so, you don't have to fast necessarily, but there are certain things that you can do that will help you. By controlling the senses, you'll come to a higher perspective and you have more freedom in your choices. Second, that was almost the second longest answer I ever gave to a question. Nicole.
I really like the point that, we have a choice, because what I have experienced with myself is, I go with the flow and, sometimes make the decision. But with this point, I can think, okay, let me evaluate the situation before, I go with a choice. So that's a fantastic point. And I have one question. How do we always keep up with this consciousness that, what I've seen is after some time, I tend to become lazy, and then, again, stop thinking of evaluating the situation, right? So.
Oh, yeah. What helps is to have a clear goal and to reiterate your goals. That works in all aspects of life. And I'm going to be going into goal setting at the beginning of the year. We'll have a course on goal setting. And you can set your goals for health, for spiritual advancement, and so forth. And it's good to keep your goals visible. And also start with something that you can handle. That really helps. And there are practices that you can integrate into your life. Like I mentioned, mantra meditation, and also hearing from the spiritual wisdom books. If you do that on a regular basis, you have wind in your sails. In fact, that's one of the statements in one of the ancient literatures themselves, that the body, the human body, is a boat, like a sailboat, and it's meant to go across the ocean of temporariness and miseries. So you need favorable winds to blow the sailboat, and those favorable winds come in the form of a hearing from these wisdom literatures, and also having a little direction from a captain. You find someone who's already sailing quite well, and then you can take help from the captain. Yeah, here's how you do it. No, don't pull in the sail yet. You're going to flip the boat. Just pull it in gradually, and so forth. So those are a couple points. There are more, but those are helpful.
I have a question.
Yes, Miriam.
So what I hear is that let's train our mind, okay, with whatever tool we're learning here, whatever tool we're learning through the life. And then the point is, like, I'm thinking, okay, I am an ocean or whatever, like a small, like a bowl of water, and let's just be calm. When I get those training, I just kind of internally feel very calm, okay? And then what generally happens after maybe weeks or I don't know, days, I see some friends. Yeah, we are living in a real life. And you started today by saying that a lot of energies out there, which is not tuned what we want, like what we are thinking. Yeah, like you see a friend in holiday or something, and then you see how I'm not pointing to somebody, but people are like going after money, going after position, going after power. And then literally I feel inside, like for days and days, I'm disturbed. And I'm trying to pinpoint why I'm disturbed, why, like, where that calmness went, why I'm like, literally like somebody put a giant rock in the water and now I cannot hold it together. Then I think back and see, oh, you know what, that word, that action from my friends, from somebody like extended family, from somebody like in the news we can control, but somebody like in your circle caused that, you cannot come back and teach them. You cannot, like, I mean, it's literally disturbing you. And you cannot stop seeing people. You have to live in this world with whatever energy it is. And it's literally hard. It takes time. It's just like, I don't know how to control that. I think I can think about myself. I can work on myself, but the effect of other energies on me, it's literally like mind blowing. It's just hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember in high school, there were some, I guess you call them kids now when I look back, but they were, I had a best friend. He's passed away now, but he was class president, always top of his class. He was captain of the water polo team, and really smart, always straight A student and stuff. And he started hanging out with this guy, Frank. I won't say his last name. Maybe he's listening. I doubt if he's still alive, the way he lived. But he was hanging out with this guy, Frank. And I just saw how he went from being this, the best guy in the school, and to gradually degrading himself just by his association. I avoided Frank. I met him a few times and I thought, this guy's dragging me down. And, I looked for other people that were, for instance, I was interested in athletics. So I'd hang out with people that were, really on top of their game and meeting their workouts every day and stuff like that, because they lift me up. And so, it's one of the points we talk about in some of the other classes. There are like 6 points that help you in spiritual practice, or as I say often, in any practice. But one of them is avoiding bad association. So we're not obligated. We get to choose in this life who we associate with most intimately, except for our family members, for the most part. I mean, with the family, you have to be a little tolerant because that's your lot in life, and you don't necessarily want to avoid them completely, usually. And if you're lucky, you can, really be around your family a lot. But we can choose our friends. And that's very helpful. So personally, whenever I want to learn something and I'm dedicated to ongoing learning, I look for the person who's really good at it and I try to make friends, and then, or make them a teacher or an official mentor, because then it becomes automatically. And those are the people I'm meeting with on a regular basis. I just arrange it. So that's one of the great secrets of life, is find people that are turning in the way that you want to turn, and then get in their orbit. And this is what in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, if you want to know spiritual truth and come to the highest level, he gives this verse. It's very instructive. He says, tad vidi pranipatina prashnena sevaya upadakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tatvadarshina, which means that find somebody who's already spiritually aware and who's advanced. How do you know they're advanced? Because you can see their steadiness. They're always in it. And they have the ability to stay above all kinds of bad habits. And they're very, and what they speak also is beneficial for others. These are some of the symptoms of somebody who's advanced. And then, so what he says is, here's how to be around them and get the most from them. So go in a humble mood, not like, I already know everything. Like, what are you going to teach me? That's the way to block all knowledge, is just say, I already know that, or think that. Be open. And the other thing is to give some service, like do something for them, because when you do something for another person, they feel open to offering what they have in their heart. And then the third thing is to ask relevant questions. And so if we're practicing something like spiritual life, we will have relevant questions, because when you're doing the discipline, then you're going to come up against obstacles, or you'll have conundrums about it. And then you'll say, how do I solve this? And so for a person who's already gone through a lot of it, you can ask him or her, and he or she will say, well, here is what I found, and here is what the ancient wisdom literatures say, and then you'll have guidance. So these three ways: do service, be submissive, and also ask good questions. And from that, association, you can make a steady and quick advancement. Linda put something there.
Yeah, Linda asks a question or makes a statement, reflection. I have finally learned that this year, that it's okay to separate myself from people who I cannot trust or are toxic to my life path. It was freeing.
Way to go, Linda. Yeah, that's a powerful, powerful knowledge to have, and to have the wherewithal to do that is very helpful also. So it shows strong determination that I want to go in a certain direction. I mean, even in school, if you're concentrated and you want to do well, you don't hang out with the people who are cutting class all the time. You stay with people who are studying in the library. And it's very common sense, but it takes a little thought and organization. Okay, Jam, I'll show a couple more slides. Thanks for great questions and comments, everybody. That was really nice. So take a look at that. Make your mind a clear medium, because that's what it is actually. But it gets overlaid with many different kinds of impressions over time, and that clear medium becomes dark and overloaded. So you have to clean the medium of the mind. Now come back in the Zoom room, and I'm going to read you a couple of verses from the Bhagavad Gita. This is in the chapter 6 where Krishna's talking about meditation. And He says, he who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. When a yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his or her meditation on the transcendent self. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he or she thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Now, in this chapter, Krishna is talking about meditation, but one of the most powerful ways that in our modern setting, not going off to a cave, which it takes a lot of practice to live in a cave. Living our normal lives where we're working and we're around people is called karma yoga. And it means to absorb the mind in the sense of service. So if you can have a service that's in spiritual service, and you dedicate yourself to that, at least starting with a little bit, then that helps to control the mind also. It remarkably brings one to a clear state of consciousness. And if you add to that a little bit of the mantra meditation and hearing from wisdom literatures, even a tiny bit, and you add that element into your life, doing some selfless service, then you'll start to notice that the mind is attracted to a higher purpose in life, higher than just trying to think, how can I be satisfied right now? It naturally feels satisfied because that's our constitutional position to do service. So if you get a little menu of services that you can perform, that's helpful also. Think like, how can I be part of some service that I'm doing? And you'll see it right away. I guarantee, I promise you, you do that and you'll start to feel satisfied. And I think we read here or another class that even if you don't have that direct kind of service, if you just start doing a little volunteer work somewhere, you'll notice the difference too, because selfless service is what actually aligns us with our higher self. Okay, there's a couple more slides. So in PubMed Central, in an article called the Neurobiology of Addiction, there's obviously a lot more to the study, but I picked out a couple of statements to explain why it is we get trapped in a kind of habit patterns that are hard to get out of. And a couple of the statements: addictive substances or stimuli hijack the brain's dopamine system. To overcome addiction, one must re-regulate one's dopamine system. And this doesn't just mean substance abuse. It means addiction to any kind of temporary stimulation of the brain that's ultimately doesn't bring us really any satisfaction. As we heard the verses a few seconds ago from the Bhagavad Gita about this sense of unbounded happiness. So that's a different kind of experience than being attached to a screen or to some kind of temporary stimulation of the brain, looking at temporary situations. However, it takes a little practice because the brain responds to certain kind of stimuli and there's a chemical involved. We create our own intoxication within the brain. So we get used to it and we think, I have to have that in order to get that experience in my brain again. And therefore, just like with any rehab program, it takes a little time. So if you come back in the Zoom room, please, I'm going to read just a couple more verses, and it relates to all different types of spiritual practice. But Krishna says here, gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, sustained by full conviction. And thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. Doesn't mean that you become antisocial. It just means you have an awareness that you're the soul, not the body. And I particularly want to bring our attention to the Shanai Shanaru Paramed, which means gradually, step by step, to overcome addiction to things we don't even like that much. It's just the mind's attached to it and keeps going back to it. So it can be done if you have positive engagement. Okay, I have a couple last slides and then we'll take a few more reflections. In fact, this is the last one you have to practice. And that relates to the last verse I just read from the Bhagavad Gita. Spiritual development requires practice. And so if you start with a little bit every day with what you can do, and you introduce it and find good association if possible, and keep doing it, you'll start to develop it just like with any other discipline. And then you'll notice the results for yourself. When you start getting results, nothing succeeds like success. And you develop a spontaneous desire to do more. And this is very helpful. So practice. Now Zoom room. Oh, I was actually going to say potent sound source, but I think I mentioned that in the beginning, and I'll end with a kirtan as well. Okay, what did you hear, or what questions did I stir up by whatever I said?
You can unmute yourself and ask or share or type in your chat box. I'll read it for you.
Yeah, anything that you heard that's stuck in your mind. T. Okay, we got T and then Wolf.
I was wondering, is there a story where asked about, say, with the people in the community, in the circle or in the center, and they came in with a song with like that vibrations you're doing that helped to change the energy, the spirit of the area, the toxicity. You know?
Is there a story about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of them. In fact, there's real life experience too. Like I've experimented around many cities. I lived in New York City for 3 years, and I used to take a chanting party down to Times Square, like on Friday, Saturday night, when it's really just a lot of frenetic energy down there. And, you know, we have this kind of chanting, and it's amazing how it creates its own little spiritual bubble in the middle of all that. Similarly, even in Las Vegas, there was a special opening ceremony, and a few hundred people came that were all accustomed to doing this kind of chanting, and they went down to the Strip. I made it a day late because I was somewhere else, so I didn't make it for that part. But they were telling me afterwards that was the best kind of chanting they ever did because of the contrast. And they said people loved it. You know, when you see side by side the material energy and the spiritual energy, it's more noticeable actually. And so, yes, it's transformational. In fact, Chaitanya, who I told you about from 500 years ago, who taught this kind of chanting, he really emphasized that don't just do it for yourself, but bring it out to the public, because it's not just for humans, it's for living entities in general. So anyone who hears the vibration, like even animals and insects, germs, and so forth, become transformed by the spiritual energy.
I think Wolf had his
Oh, Wolf, yeah.
Yeah, today's session is fantastic, and it reinforced my earlier, around 20 years ago, I put the visual model, we called it Pubmed, Power of Individual Choice inside of the matrix of success and time, and the notion that we're living these three lives, public, private, and personal, from the honesty on the third level and that personal. So the visual model, I can share it probably next time. Really good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Wolf. Good to hear your voice, as usual. Well, we're down to the last few minutes. And since we started with a little spiritual sound vibration and kirtan, I'll end with it also. And yes, please.
Take a minute, just announce that given holidays are coming, many people will be traveling to friends and family. So next 2 weeks, we will not have Success Sadhana. We'll reconvene in New Year. So just want to make that announcement.
Wow, I'm going to miss you all. I hope you have a really nice break and a holiday. And I'll be off taking my year-end retreat also. My wife and I go away and stay away from, just go for long walks and talks and set goals and think about what we did, what happened in the last year, what we're planning to do the next year. Takes a little while to actually get down to talking deeply. So we try to, retreat to another place and just, spend some time with that. I hope you all have a refreshing time also. So what do you think, Charles? Should we end with some kirtan?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everyone, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everyone, Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everyone, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, everyone, we came together, we had a little discussion, kirtan, and as they say on Wall Street, you never go broke taking a profit. So spiritually, whatever we do to advance the cause, that's permanent and has compounded interest. I'll see you in the new year. It's been an incredible 2021. I can't believe it went by so fast. And I'm deeply grateful to all of you for coming in every Friday for the last 52 weeks or so, 50 weeks or so. And I'll be counting the days till we see you again. In the meantime, I know our friends high in the Himalayas who come out of their caves every once in a while, and they may be doing it right now. Of course, it's like 1 a.m. there now. But maybe they are. And when they see each other, they get so encouraged to see another practitioner. They raise their arms high in the air and they say this phrase that means keep the transcendental vibration going. And it goes like this, Haribol. So we can try it. Haribol.
Haribol. Haribol.
Everybody, Haribol.
Hari Hari. See you next year.